remains to be seen how much turnout was for the next 4 hours until those polls closed at 8, and we had that evening rush of folks getting off of work, heading out to the polls on their way home. We also are seeing strong turnout in Johnson County. That's where the University of Iowa is, and Iowa City. In Johnson County so far, they have hit 80% of voter turnout. And those numbers I believe, were from 3 o'clock this afternoon. So we may be breaking a record in Johnson County, the heavily Democratic Johnson County, as well.
And two big counties, as we've been saying throughout the evening, for Democrats to have hopes of flipping these congressional seats, the first and the third, they especially wanted to do well there. Of course, they also want to do well in Dallas County in this third congressional race. Thanks, Connor. And we will check in with Connor several times this hour as he is watching a bunch of different races. Also, some interesting state house races that we want to keep tabs on, too. Let's bring in our contributors for this hour, Jerry Crawford and Mike Mahaffey. We have done this a long time together, gents, looking in these numbers coming in from our state. And I want to refresh us off the top here, gents, as we see this presidential race. So let's back out of this and look and see where things stand on this presidential race. Pretty interesting because we've crossed the 500,000 vote barrier, and I realize we have a lot coming in from Polk. But if you back off this, we've got 21% reporting now, 30% of the estimated total vote. So 21% keeping our eye on here. But still at this point, Kamala Harris is actually leading Donald Trump in our state.
What do you have, Brad?
We have a long way to go before these things are final. But as of now, Kamala Harris up 2,438 votes ahead of... that's how things change. Just adjusted on the fly. Donald Trump has jumped back up here. So now he's crossed the 50% threshold in the state. He's now pulled ahead to 9,189. Mike Mahaffey working the phone, working his sources. Jerry Crawford been crunching a bunch of numbers here, particularly in Polk County. And gents, as you're doing your sourcing here, I'm going to back off and look at a few of these counties that we're starting to get. Let's look at the difference in Polk for just the presidential race, and then we're going to jump into some of these congressionals. But Harris up by about 29,000 votes in Polk County. Jerry and Mike, let's bring you in here. Let's start with the presidential. I know we have a lot of developments on a couple of different fronts, but do these Polk County numbers mean anything to you? We've got 93% reporting now, and Harris up by about 12%, which is about 29,000 votes. Jerry, anything we can glean from that just looking at Polk?
Well, as a homer, I have to say I'm tickled because the numbers have been floating right around Ann Selzer's prediction. And so good for her. She's taken an enormous amount of abuse since her poll came out, which is ironic because the abuser had praised her when she came out with a poll in his favor a year ago. So enough of that, we'll see. But it's exciting to be in the hunt, let's put it that way, in the presidential. Nationally, the race is close but hopeful from my side because we're leading in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Georgia got a little closer again. I don't know where that will end up, but the blue wall that everybody's heard about for a long time is Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. If we can hold those three, we would have a new president of the United States.
It looks like District 41, the House race, before we jump into the presidential numbers here, Molly Buck, the Democrat state representative, has won that Ankeny seat, District 41. We'll get to a bunch of these state house races. Okay. Mike, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's right. That was another race. That Ankeny is always ground zero for both parties. So for sure. That's significant because that's one that the Democrats had to hold in order to not lose any tonight. The thing about the first district is I think there's about, what I can see, about 15% of the voted. Congresswoman Miller Meeks is ahead, but that doesn't include anything from Johnson County, which surprises me somewhat that we just don't have anything out of Johnson County yet.
But we do know that Johnson County set an all-time record for turnout, and we do know
which bodes well for Bohannon.
Yeah, yes. Bohannon is likely to get about 70% of that vote. So,
I still think, Dave and Jerry, that Donald Trump carries Iowa from what I've seen and what I've heard, but I think it is going to be close. Okay.
We're jumping back and forth, I know, but we had just mentioned legislative races with one precinct left to report. Nate Bolton has a 420 vote lead. So
we're talking that's kind of Altoona, East Des Moines, Bondurant.
Correct.
That area over there. Yeah, that has been a tight one against Republican Mike Pike, his challenger in that race.
Well, and the Democrats need to hold that one in order to, if they've picked up, it looks like they picked up the Zahn seat, but they've got to hold Nate Bolton to get to that number 17.
To get him one more seat there, pushing him from 16 to 17. And as Mike is talking about, Brad Zahn, the longtime state legislator, state senator, one of the Republican leaders, it appears that his Democratic challenger, Matt Blake, has defeated him. That was the Senate Democratic operation. That was their top seat that they really wanted. Both sides spent a ton of money on that Des Moines Metro race, and it appears that Matt Blake has won that seat by a decent amount as well. Gents, as we're looking, I'm going to continue on the 1st Congressional District. We do not have numbers on the map yet from Scott County. I know that's going to be a key one for us to watch, the Davenport area. Clinton County, we do have some numbers there. Bohannon, 55.5%. Marionette, Miller Meeks, 45.5%. I'm just going to flip back and see how that went last cycle when these two ran. Pretty similar. So it was Miller Meeks 53, Bohannon 47 2 years ago. So that's pretty consistent how that one has gone. A couple other ones. Let's look down south here. Lee County, 56% roughly for Miller Meeks, 44% for Bohannon. 2 years ago, it was a little tighter. Miller Meeks 53 to 47 was the way that shook out. We're getting some numbers from Warren County as we get closer to the Des Moines Metro. Indianola, the county seat there, Marionette Miller Meeks, up by about 13%. It's 386 votes in Warren County. That's still very early on there. Let's see what it was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, 53 to 47. So we see how that one is shaking out. Let's check one more here, Jackson County, and see how that one's going. 69% of the estimated total vote. All right, so in this one with about 7,800 in, it's 55 Miller Meeks, Bohannon with 45, and 2 years ago it was about a 6.5 point spread on this. Let's jump out and see where things stand in this 3rd Congressional District. Since we took that break, we have had an update on numbers here. Lennon Bacam winning right now, and this is what we talked about and all the talk leading into this. For a Democrat to win, he's really going to have to run up the numbers in Polk County, and then we'll check that Dallas one in just a second. But gents, the number for Polk County in this race, we've got Bacam up by about 29,000 in Polk County, 56% to 44%. Let me see what it was 2 years ago. Polk 2 years ago, Axney won this by 14%. So that's about what it was. Those margins holding about the same. Let's see what Dallas is looking like. So Dallas County, 87% reporting here. Gents, let's have you weigh in on this one. So the latest numbers I have from Dallas County, you have the incumbent, Zach Nunn, 29,904, 29904, which is 53.5%. Lennon Bacam is Democratic challenger, 25,961, 25961. So that is 46.5%, the difference of a little bit shy of 4,000. Jerry, what do you make about those Dallas numbers?
That's tough. It's right on the line, and it depends on the final few precincts out of Polk County in terms of offsetting the deficit from Bacam in Dallas County. It's tough from here. I did want to mention before I forget, an interesting, Dave, human interest story. Tom and Christy Vilsack, Iowa's former governor and first lady, did a superhuman effort helping Lennon Beckham. Lennon had worked for the Secretary of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack, in Washington, D.C., came back to make this run. They were both very involved in assisting him. The former first lady did a tremendous amount of fundraising work, and it was a much more positive race than many that we've seen.
I would agree, but I would also say this, and I think you're right, Jerry. I think Lennon Beckham needed to do better in Dallas County than what he has done. And with that in mind, at this point in time, I think that turns that race more favorably towards Zach Nunn.
And as you know, Republicans were a little nervous about that. They weren't panicked about that, Mike. But that 3rd district race, that was one of those where they were wondering if Harris is going to push a bunch of new supporters here to her side. That was one of those races they were wondering if Zach Nunn was going to kind of be collateral damage here and go down if the Trump margin was not big. All right, so we're seeing where that stands right now. Let's go back and get our first hour's check of the 2nd congressional district. And this one's competitive at this point. Despite Sarah Corkery not really raising hardly any money and getting really any outside help to speak of, Ashley Hinson, the Republican incumbent, the former state legislator, up 52% to 46.9%. That's almost the difference in the party registration in that district. So Hinson is up 8,298 with still maybe early on here 22% reporting, so we're still waiting on a bunch. If you look at Corkery's strengths, you're looking at Blackhawk County where she's up 55 to 44%, and Lynn County 47% to 42%. Is that race closer than what you two were thinking?
Well, I think that the interesting thing there is that Sarah Corkery didn't raise hardly any money. The Democrats didn't really put much effort into that at all. And it may be one of those things, and you never know these things, that may be one of those things at the end of the night. Perhaps the Democratic Congressional Committee will say to themselves, maybe we should have invested in that race some. It's closer than I think people thought it was going to be. But it looks to me like Ashley Hinson is still going to prevail.
There's also that independent in that race, maybe hitting Hinson from the right a little bit, and Corkery even trying to push a little attention her way with that one and only debate they did on Iowa PBS. I wanted to just jump in and look at this 4th congressional race. Actually, the margin is actually expanded in this one now, where you have Randy Feenstra up by more than 40% in that northwest Iowa district. 31,534. That race, Jerry, I'm told that the Nate Bolton race, that Senate race, they're down to just one precinct left. I think that's one thing that you were talking about, up by 425 or so. So trying to hang on against his Republican challenger, Mike Pike. And it looks like that State House race, Heather Sievers and Bill Gustoff, that also is nearly final, and Sievers, the challenger, is up in that race. That is another one we talked about earlier. It looks like it's the same precinct for both of those races, so it's kind of an interesting dynamic. Once I hope comes in, we'll see which way that goes.
Yeah, I hope we get the final Nate Bolton precinct before we have to sign off.
And Dave, back to the 4th district, I think those numbers on Veenstra will also tell you that is one of the reasons that Donald Trump is going to carry Iowa tonight.
Let's back off and see if we can look at this will give us got the heat turned on here. It's kind of the intensity, so you can see that kind of deep red, and you can definitely see that deep red over in northwest Iowa. So much of that district, and we got a lot of them where we don't have any numbers yet. And Mike, as you mentioned earlier tonight, some of those smaller counties, of which there are many in that 4th congressional district, frankly, there are just a lot of counties. That district, we have 99 counties, but that's almost a third of our counties of the state are in that district. But a lot of those very, very red, and you're not going to see any blue when we turn on the heat intensity because there's just nothing in there. I just got an update now, so looking statewide, and you can see how these numbers have really flipped once the northwest counties have started kicking in, and that is, so Trump is now up 42% to 46.7%, and it looks like we have 29% of the numbers coming in statewide here. Let's just bounce around quickly. So we've got Winneshiek County. That's one county that Harris is up 51.5 to 47. Another check at Clinton County. She remains up there 51.6 to 47. Jefferson County now with some numbers in 60% to 39%. Let's see what that was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, Trump actually carried that one over Joe Biden. So we'll see how that one turns out. 52% of the estimated.
It's still, back to the first district, Jerry and Dave. It's still, we haven't heard from Scott County or Johnson County, and both very significant counties, as we talked about earlier this evening. That race, it looks to me like Congresswoman Miller Meeks is holding her own in some of the smaller counties. But where are Scott and Johnson, Dave?
Indeed, where are they? Let's see. We'll do another check here. Yeah, that's we're still seeing goose eggs there. It's taken them a while to count up that student vote, apparently. Yeah, we don't have, now maybe they're all going to come in one big swoop. You wonder, it's 9:18. You'd think we would have had a trickle of, at least the early ones would have come in by now. But yeah, nothing at all, and not a drop in Scott County either. So that the two counties we've been talking about all night, there's some Hollywood producer putting this show together, I think, because those were the ones we were going to really, really watch, and we've got zeros in both of those so far.
Yeah, what I show is 22% in the District 1, 54% Meeks, 46% Bohannon, but nothing from Johnson County and virtually nothing from Scott
Mike.
County.
We now have
Pardon
Johnson County.
Okay.
All right, Johnson County numbers, gents. Bohannon, 68.4%. She has 13,319. 13,319. The incumbent Congresswoman Marionette Miller Meeks, less than half that, 6,153. So a gap of 7,166. Now, I'm pretty sure that it was about, Bohannon had 71.5% of that vote 2 years ago. Now, we're still pretty early on, but the margin is not as big as it was 2 years ago, looking at the first batch of these guys.
Right. But I think that's only like 22 or 3%, Dave.
Right. Yeah, we've got 20% of the total vote. So we at least got our first batch there. So almost right on cue, we got our first look there. So we'll see there. Let's back out, and we haven't checked the amendments for a while. This has been pretty consistent. Apparently in Woodbury County, they're not a big fan of this. Not Amendment 1, requiring the citizenship to vote and modifying the voting age. That's 2-1 going down there, and that is literally the only state. So something's going on in Woodbury County where some folks have organized against Amendment 1, apparently. The only one statewide. Let's look at Amendment 2. That one they like. Woodbury County likes Amendment 2, though. They just don't like Amendment 1. It's interesting the way that bounced out. All right, so both of those look like they're well on their way. We're not going to spend a lot of time on those two. That second one was to kind of put into place a constitutional amendment for the gubernatorial line of succession. And as we know right now, we do not have a lieutenant governor since Adam Gregg resigned from that, perhaps much to the surprise of his boss at the time. But he stepped aside, and Governor Reynolds has chosen not to fill that until after the election, and maybe depending on how things shake out, that's how she's going to make her decision. We'll see, but looks like that constitutional amendment's going to go through. Okay, so the folks in Woodbury did not like Amendment 1. They do like Donald Trump. He is winning comfortably there, 67% and 100% reporting now. So about 67% for Trump, 32 for Kamala Harris. Let's see what that margin was. So Trump's done a little better versus Harris than he did versus Biden. Yeah, quite a bit, actually. Good chunk better. All right, let's pick another one on this presidential. Let's check in on Polk. We're getting 98% reporting, so a lot of those are in. And Kamala Harris, 55%. Donald Trump, 44%. Just looking at Polk County. Still got goose eggs over in Scott County. All right, Clinton County for the presidential race. Harris is up by 505 votes. 2 years ago, Trump took that one by 2,500 votes. Let's see where we are here. We're still fairly at 25,000 last time. We've got 11,000. So we've still got a good chunk to go in there, but that is one where Harris is holding her own, at least early on that. See if we've got anything new from the 3rd Congressional District. We are now up to 64% reporting, gents. So the numbers I have, Lenon Bacam up by 17,417. And as we've talked about, and to no surprise, Polk is the county where he is winning. So it's 53 to 47. Let's look at the margins in Polk County, 55.7 to 44.3. Let's jump back to Dallas, that fast-growing county there, where Zach Nunn is a lead of about 3,800 votes in Dallas County. He is winning every other county where we have numbers. Cass County, pretty low total, but he's up almost 3-1 in Cass County, the western part of the district. Union County, as we start pushing south a little bit, he's up by 22 points there. And Ringgold County, another one where he's getting almost 3/4 of the votes. That one is a lot more lopsided. What's the total, actually?
Gave a couple of update final results.
Yeah.
The last precinct is in the Bolton-Pike race. Bolton wins, beats Pike by 143 votes, give or take. And Seavers, I believe, was unsuccessful in the final analysis.
All right, so updates there. So that would be a hold for Democrats, kind of the eastern part. Start pushing toward the eastern part of the metro, eastern Des Moines, Bondurant, Altoona. Nate Bolton, who had maybe a tougher than expected fight from Mike Pike in that legislative race, but for Democrats, that was definitely one they wanted to hold on to, as it appears they were able to pick up that seat over Republican Brad Zahn. Guys, one race we haven't talked about is another one in the Des Moines Metro, and that was Sarah Trone Garriott. Perhaps going into this, she may have been one of the potentially vulnerable Democrats. Republicans were running Dallas County Supervisor Mark Hansen. That one is especially close, and according to the Secretary of State's site, it's about knotted up here. Sarah Trone Garriott up by just 47 votes or so. And guys, Associated Press has not called Iowa yet. Apparently NBC has now called Iowa for Donald Trump.
And a couple other have also done that. Back to the Seavers race against Bill Gustav. That was one that the Democrats were really hoping that they could turn. It sounds like it's very close, but that is a hold for the Republicans.
And that is another one in the Des Moines Metro. So if you look at the statewide numbers now that we have in the Trump-Harris race, and again, NBC, one of them now calling this race for Donald Trump, that gap, and this is starting to expand to bring us back to more what this was like 4 years ago and 8 years ago. So perhaps the Trump turnout toward the end here was better than expected from what the Ann Seltzer poll picked up. We'll see what these final numbers look like. But at this point, he is up by 7.7%, about 59,000 votes. This would have been a real long shot for Kamala Harris to win. Since she didn't campaign here, Democrats did not bring in any outside help to try to target this. But from what the network is calling here, and it's just updated to make it slightly closer here, but it's still almost a 60,000 vote gap. And you can see now perhaps Harris will end up doing just slightly better than what Biden said. Well, Biden did 4 years ago. We'll wait and see.
Well, I think even Ann Seltzer, after the poll came out, Jerry and Dave said, look, it was a snapshot, and she said this may actually spur the Republicans on, in the last few days. And I had some Republicans tell me they thought it probably did help in terms of any complacency that there was in the state of Iowa.
And if that's the case, then we'll see if that then aids them elsewhere, perhaps especially in that Zach Nunn race. Maybe that gives them a little more rural push, a little more push in Dallas County to see where things stand.
Well, back to Sarah Trone Garrett a minute. That's another one. If the Democrats lose that, then they're back to 16 again, rather than the 17 that they want to be at after Brad Zahn lost, and it looks like Nate Bolton won narrowly.
And you're talking 16 seats out of 50, so that shows just what kind of predicament Senate Democrats are in as they try to rebuild. I was looking at that Josh Turek, James Wassel race in the Council Bluffs area in the western part of the state. That's District 20 in the House, but that was one where Republicans are hoping to try to grab that one. That one does not have any numbers reporting yet. There is in the Ankeny area, the District 42 in the House. Heather Mattson, the incumbent Democrat, ahead of her Republican challenger, Heather Stevenson, and that is a gap of about 800 or so. Let's see if we can get a few more details on where that one stands. I got about 12,500 here. I'm not sure how far in it is, but not sure what percentage of that is in so far. But that's kind of another one to watch. That's one of the races Republicans targeted. Let's bounce back to that third. Well, we'll see what the second right now. So the last one with 27% reporting. Ashley Hinson now further expanding that lead. She's up almost double digits now, 9+ against her Democratic challenger. Let's see if we've had any updates in the 3rd Congressional. So in that 3rd District race, 71% reporting now. Lenon Bakam's still up. We've got a lot of these rural counties still yet to report, but he's up by almost 11,000, 51.6 to 48.4. Dallas still waiting to turn final, but Zach Nunn, the incumbent, they're up by about 3,900 votes. We've got numbers in from Page County, the furthest southwest county of the district, and Nunn winning very, very comfortably there.
That margin keeps going down for Lenon Bakam, and with over 25% left, I'd have to say that it's going to be very difficult for him to win that race.
Yeah, the margin in Polk is 11.4 is our latest here with about 98% now. So that gap's going to be about what it is. That doesn't look like that's going to change. We've got a few numbers in the southeast corner now. Davis County, where he's winning, Nunn is winning almost 3-1. Appanoose County, same deal. He's at 71% there. Also winning big in Monroe County. Everything in there, 74% of the total. Ringgold County, another 100% in, 74% of it. Union County, about 37% of the total votes. So we're still waiting on a bunch there perhaps, but 61% there in Adams County. I don't think we've talked about them. Looks like they are all in. That is a small rural county there, 71%. Finally, Cass County is getting about 3 out of 4 in that race. So Zach Nunn doing very, very well in these more rural counties and winning by 6+6.6 in Dallas County. Jerry, do you agree that that third district is going to be a challenge now for Bacom?
It's tough.
All right, let's take a look at that 4th congressional district. Well, I know you two are crunching numbers. So Randy Feenstra just keeps expanding every time we check here. So he is up to nearly 3/4 of the total, with about 117,000 plus in, 28% reporting, and red all over the place. Even when you take the heat out, that heat intensity really shows just how Republican red that is, particularly along the, he's got 88%
Miller
in
Meeks.
Sioux County where they're all reporting, 79% in Plymouth County where 100% reporting, 69% in Woodbury where they're more than half reporting. We got another Palo Alto is full, 100% in, 74%, 100% in Pocahontas, and he's got 79% there. We go way up north to Winnebago County, 60% there, and 70% with 100% of them reporting in Wright County. So as you talked about, Mike, as we see these numbers, I'm not sure we can really see any complacency. It seems like Northwest Iowa, much as you predicted, they're turning out.
Yeah. It looks like there's about 36% of the vote in the first district. It's still Miller Meeks 52 to 48%, but that does not include most of Johnson County nor Scott County. Again, where is Scott County, Dave and Jerry?
Yeah, we don't
They've
have
obviously
anything at all in from there. And Johnson County, we need a lot. We're still waiting on a lot there. So that margin between the two, 68 to 32 roughly, is a smaller gap than it was 2 years ago when these two candidates faced off. But we're still talking about just a small percentage here. Let's see if the other counties are finishing up. They are. So Jackson's 100% in now, 58 to 42, Miller Meeks. Clinton County, she's expanded this now, 54 to 46 there. Cedar County, 100% in there, 57 to 43. Iowa County, nearly 60 to 40 with 100% in. Getting close to halfway home in Mahaska County, and Miller Meeks running it up there with 71%. Warren County getting about halfway in. That one's closer, 53 to 47. Let's see what Jefferson, still have a ways to go there, but Bohannon 64 to 36. So yeah, a long way to go in Johnson County, which will go a long way in telling us how things stand in that.
Johnson and Scott, right?
Yes, Johnson and Scott, which we talked to begin with, Jerry, are really two of the key counties in that district.
Yeah.
And a reminder, Scott 2 years ago was roughly 53-47 for Miller Meeks, and Scott was definitely one of those counties that the Bohannon camp was looking at to spend some time and, if not win that, definitely shrink the margin there and hope to run up the score in Johnson. But we don't know how that's turned out yet in Johnson. We've got a long way to go on that. Let's give another. I'm going to give another refresh of some of these state house races to see if anything has happened. We're still waiting for Trone Garriott.
Dave, I'm going to put a quick call into Clinton County and see what's up.
Okay. I'm gonna check on. Yeah, mute your mic there. We're gonna hear your call, but maybe that'd be fun for us. Mike, spout some wisdom on us while I'm checking in to see what's going on with Trone Garriott's race.
Well, I to put this in perspective, Dave, in July, Joe Biden was behind Donald Trump 18 percentage points. And if he were still the nominee, this I think would be a disastrous night for Democrats in Iowa. The way it is, is I don't think it's going to be as good a night as they had hoped for, particularly after the Iowa poll last weekend. It looks like the Republicans are going to, at least so far, hold serve in the 3rd district. They're going to win the 2nd district, obviously overwhelmingly win the 4th. The question becomes whether or not Christina Bohannon will have a big enough margin in Johnson and see what happens in Scott County to win that race. It's still very possible she could do that, which would be significant for the Democrats. But again, I think it shows that they still have a long ways to go in Iowa. And while I think they're in better shape than they certainly were a couple of months ago, or even maybe a month ago, it's not what they were hoping for after the Iowa poll on Sunday.
And Mike, I've got an update on Sarah Trone Garriott's race, the state senator. She's the Democrat incumbent in District 14. So that is, it's got some Urbandale in it. I think that's got some Waukee in it.
Yes.
She's going against Mark Hansen, who has been a Dallas County supervisor. And that thing is tight. I'm told that there are 2 West Des Moines precincts out there. She carried them, I believe, last time around. This is the area is familiar for Mark Hansen since he represented Dallas County. So that is one that remains very, very tight. That is 47 votes separating the 2. So that is a squeaker. That's a squeaker to watch.
Is she ahead, David?
She is ahead.
Okay.
One we haven't talked about is District 28, and that is the former Iowa Congressman David Young, kind of the as you go west of the metro, west of Des Moines a little bit. His race against his Democratic challenger Laura Snyder. He is up by about 1,100 votes in that race, so perhaps he is on his way to re-election, and that was definitely one Republicans did not want to lose. Eddie Andrews, as we mentioned, in District 43, looks like he has held off. Pretty good challenge from Tierra Mays Sims out in the Johnston area.
David Young is one of the he's a really solid guy. He's a Mike Mahaffey Republican.
Yeah. David is one of those people, Jerry and Dave, that is in politics to do something, not just to be something. He's a doer. I agree. I have a lot of respect for David.
And it looks like the numbers are going in his favor. You have anything to report back as you're working your sources over there, Jerry?
The people at the Bohannon campaign can't find out anything either. I think that's a no.
Well,
but I can quantify the Johnson County thing a little bit.
Okay.
20% of the votes in Johnson County, Bohannon has 70% of it. So if you extrapolate that, assuming that that's not some geographic bias, it's going to be very hard for Miller Meeks to overcome Bohannon down the stretch. That's my take on it.
Well, and Scott County, again, is still important, but my beloved wife is from there, and I worked there many years ago for a Republican congressman. They refer to Scott as the state of Scott. It's kind of its own place over there. It doesn't pay a lot of attention to Des Moines, Jerry.
Well, it's the secret state right now because we don't have a single report from there. So it's the deep state's the secret state. Something's going on there. We don't have it. We don't have anything yet. I'm going to refresh Johnson County, and we're still kind of stuck under 20,000. We're not making much progress in this district where the most eyeballs may end up as we work our way through. Looking as the math, we still have the latest numbers here. Still have Lennon-Bacom up, but you can see where that gap is: 50.7 for Bacom, 49.3 for Zach Nunn. So that's a difference of 4,826 in that race. And Polk is inching its way up to 99% now. He's got a lead of 27,209. And as we can tell from the heat map, you see blue in one county, and that's the only county. And Dallas still waiting 96% as we see the gap of 39.87. So for Bacom, the math starts getting more challenging as things move on. He's not going to pick up much more here in Polk County, so it's tough to see unless he's going to surprise somewhere. A little tougher to
Dave,
see where that's gonna go.
where does your map show the remaining vote to be coming from?
We've got nothing yet from Greene. We've got nothing from Guthrie, from Adair, from Madison, from Montgomery, Taylor, Clark, Decatur, and Lucas. We've got nothing from any of those.
Yeah, and those are all going to be Republican counties, Jerry and Dave.
Okay, let's pop back in on the second. Seems like every time we update the second, that gap gets bigger. And as of now, so we have 44% reporting, so we're working our way up to half. Associated Press, thank you, Connor. Associated Press is now called Iowa for Trump as well. So this first congressional district, that gap getting bigger. Ashley Hinson now with 44% of the total in, now up by 33,000 plus in her challenge, in her race against her challenger, Sarah Corkery. Every time I click, and this presidential race is starting to, we're getting a lot of distance here. We've got a lot still to come in, and we'll see if Johnson's going to change this a bunch probably. But
well, I just got an update from Johnson that says 46% is in now, and Bohannon's at 62%, which is down some from what it was before.
All right. Yeah, our map still has a little bit less than 40,000 for Johnson County with her at 62%. Yeah, that's the latest. That's the latest we have. This presidential one, yeah, there's some of these counties have been reporting. You can just see the sea of red, and this gap is large. Now we've got a big chunk in Johnson County, so I would assume that's going to narrow this gap. But as of now, we've got a 13% gap between Trump and Harris, and as we can see by the check mark, that one has been called, and I guess they haven't called the 4th congressional district, but you know, that one's coming.
They should, Dave.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they're waiting on there. All right, so we're coming up on 9:45. Jerry, I think you got one final update for us, Mr. Crawford?
My mind has been wandering toward the national race.
All
I
right,
think Michigan is
before we hit our break here. What you got?
Michigan's going to be the closest of the final three that the Democrats need to win.
Okay, what's your feel? Harris going in the right direction, or too soon to tell?
Too soon to tell.
Mike, what's your gut?
I'm with Jerry. I think it's really too soon to tell, and it looks like Trump carried Georgia, Jerry, or is it still too close?
Too close, and the vote that's out should be the Democrats. The order of the vote that comes in, but it's modeled this time the same as it was last time. And if you'll recall, at the end, the Democrats pulled 10,000 votes ahead.
Yeah, there's only one.
So I don't think.
Go ahead, Jerry.
I was just going to say I'd hate to be relying on winning Georgia at this point in terms of the final outcome.
Not what Harris was wanting in that mathematical equation. Hey, Jerry, Mike, good to reunite with you. We appreciate the insight through the night. I'm going to take a pause because I got to go yak on a few TV stations across our state. We appreciate the time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you for joining us throughout the afternoon and throughout the evening. Updates still to come. Everything not final here. Still got a lot of eyeballs looking at that 1st and 3rd congressional race. Stay tuned to your local news at 10 o'clock for the latest on that. Thanks for being with us.